Consider the cherubim described in Ezekiel chapter 1. Each had 4 faces: the face of a man, the face of a lion, the face of an ox, and the face of an eagle. Their legs were straight, and the sole of their feet was like the sole of a calf's foot, and they sparkled like burnished bronze. This is not the serene, ethereal imagery we often associate with angels. Instead, we find something multifaceted, almost mechanical, and profoundly unsettling. What if the beings we call angels were not born from a singular divine vision, but were carved from the very fabric of ancient pagan myth? Could it be that the iconic angels of your Bible, the cherubim, seraphim, and archangels, are not singular divine creations, but complex figures forged in the crucible of diverse ancient cultures? This video promises an academic, skeptical exploration, not to diminish their significance, but to trace their true provenance. We will investigate the historical and textual evidence suggesting these figures are what scholarship terms syncretic divinities, possessing deep, often overlooked roots in Mesopotamian, Canaanite, and Persian mythologies. Before we unravel these connections, however, it's crucial to understand the conventional portrayal of these celestial beings. Conventionally, within Abrahamic theology, angels are understood as pure spiritual beings, direct creations of the divine. They serve as celestial attendants, divine messengers, and sacred guardians, distinct from human experience in earthly realms. Their genesis is often seen as singular, originating entirely within sacred scripture, untainted by external mythological influences. This traditional framework posits them as unique entities, embodying God's will and presence. They are portrayed as fundamental to the divine order, their forms and functions divinely ordained and exclusive to the biblical narrative. However, to truly investigate the provenance of these figures, we must first situate ourselves not solely within theological texts, but within the broader, dynamic crucible of the ancient Near East, a region far more interconnected than often assumed. To grasp the true context of biblical angels, we must first transport ourselves to this region, a vibrant crossroads stretching from the Fertile Crescent of Mesopotamia to the Nile Delta and the Levant. This wasn't a collection of isolated cultures. Rather, from roughly 2000 to 500 BCE, it was a dynamic tapestry of empires, trade networks, and competing religious traditions. Early Israelite society, far from developing in a vacuum, was deeply enmeshed within this intricate web. Ideas, symbols, and narratives flowed as freely as goods along ancient trade routes, constantly influencing belief systems, artistic motifs, and even the very language of divinity. It was an environment ripe for what scholarship terms cultural syncretism, where foreign concepts were not simply rejected, but often absorbed, adapted, and reinterpreted. This constant exchange meant that the spiritual landscape of ancient Israel was paradoxically a unique blend of its own traditions and the rich, diverse mythology surrounding it. But how did these deep cultural currents manifest in the very imagery of the divine? Yet it was in the dusty plains of Mesopotamia and the ancient city of Ugarit where conventional understanding began to crack. Decades of painstaking archaeological work unearthed monumental winged creatures, colossal human-headed lions and bulls guarding Assyrian palaces like Khorsabad. Simultaneously, intricate carvings from Canaanite sites like Ugarit revealed their own pantheon of hybrid beings and divine messengers. Scholars, meticulously documenting these finds, couldn't ignore the striking visual and functional parallels to biblical descriptions. These were not mere coincidences. The resemblances were too profound, too specific. This wasn't just ancient art, it was a revelation that forced a radical reevaluation. The figures guarding the very heart of Mesopotamian power, for instance, bore an uncanny resemblance to the cherubim described in Ezekiel, compelling us to look closer. The most vivid textual encounter with cherubim comes from the prophet Ezekiel's vision. We see creatures with 4 faces: human, lion, ox, and eagle, each possessing 4 wings, accompanied by intricate, self-moving wheels. These descriptions paint a picture of beings far grander and more complex than ethereal cherubic infants. Now, juxtapose this with the colossal Lamassu and Shidu of ancient Mesopotamia, guardians unearthed from Assyrian palace entrances and temple gates. These monumental figures, often depicted as winged bulls or lions with human heads, served a singular, powerful purpose: to protect sacred and royal spaces, standing as formidable liminal sentinels. According to scholars like Othmar Kiel, the iconographic and functional similarities are striking, suggesting a profound influence. The question then becomes, what did these ancient parallels mean for the cherubim's role within early Israelite theology? For many biblical scholars, the parallels between cherubim and Mesopotamian Lamassu are not coincidental. Instead, the prevailing hypothesis suggests the cherubim represent a localized adaptation of these ancient Near Eastern protective deities. Their function in the biblical narrative, guarding the Garden of Eden or serving as the throne of Yahweh atop the Ark of the Covenant, strikingly mirrors the role of their Mesopotamian counterparts in protecting sacred or royal spaces. This process highlights a sophisticated theological reinterpretation where potent foreign imagery was absorbed and repurposed, shedding its polytheistic origins to serve a burgeoning monotheistic theology. We call these syncretic guardians. This isn't mere imitation, it's a deliberate act of theological recontextualization, integrating powerful, familiar symbols into a new divine framework. But if the very guardians of sacred Israelite space were inspired by pagan iconography, what profound implications does this hold for the perceived uniqueness of early Israelite religious concepts? If the revered cherubim guarding Eden and the Ark indeed draw their blueprint from Mesopotamian pagan iconography, then the implications are profound. This directly challenges the Orthodox view of angels as singularly distinct, divinely revealed entities. Does such assimilation diminish their sacredness, reducing them to mere copies? Or, as scholarship suggests, does it paint a picture of a more dynamic, evolving faith, capable of recontextualizing powerful symbols into its unique monotheistic framework? This evidence compels us to question not just the forms, but the very provenance of these celestial beings. However, the cherubim are only one facet of this complex tapestry. From these syncretic guardians, our investigation now turns to the fiery beings of divine presence, figures far more enigmatic. The seraphim, often depicted as ethereal, may hold an even more ancient and primal secret within their fiery forms. Yet the deeper we delve into the origins of these syncretic divinities, the more unsettling the implications become. While cherubim guarded sacred spaces, the seraphim hint at a provenance far more primal, challenging our understanding of divine attendants themselves. What ancient elemental forces truly shaped these enigmatic figures? If the cherubim unveiled a story of cultural adaptation, the seraphim whisper of an even more primal, perhaps unsettling lineage. Isaiah's vision in chapter 6 paints them as six-winged, fiery beings, proclaiming God's holiness, their very presence shaking the temple foundations. Yet the Hebrew term seraph itself carries a more ancient, visceral meaning. Beyond celestial beings, seraph is also used in Numbers 21:6 to describe the fiery serpent sent by God to plague the Israelites. This dual usage reveals a potent linguistic connection to ancient serpent symbolism. Consider the Egyptian uraeus, winged cobras adorning pharaonic crowns, symbols of divine protection and destructive power. Or the Canaanite serpent cults, whose presence is even attested within Israel itself through the Nehushtan, the brazen serpent venerated in the temple until King Hezekiah destroyed it, as recorded in 2 Kings 18:4. These parallels suggest a deeply rooted iconography in the ancient world. But why would such potent, even dangerous symbols be repurposed into divine attendants? What theological motive drove this profound transformation? Scholarship suggests this assimilation was not accidental, but a deliberate theological maneuver. Early Israelite religion, confronted with the pervasive power of ancient Near Eastern serpent iconography, symbols of vitality, protection, or even destructive divine wrath, undertook a sophisticated process of recontextualization. These potent symbols were stripped of their pagan pantheon associations and repurposed as attendants to Yahweh, serving as fiery guardians and heralds of His holiness. This exemplifies what we term the villain denial paradox in theological development. Those responsible for adapting these symbols genuinely believed they were purifying and elevating them, integrating powerful, familiar imagery into a new, exclusive monotheistic framework. They weren't seeing themselves as borrowing, they were refining, sanctifying. However, many scholars and theologians offer a robust counterargument to the idea of mere mythological borrowing. They contend that while superficial resemblances might exist in form, the function and, crucially, the theological meaning of cherubim and seraphim within the biblical narrative are profoundly unique. From this perspective, these beings are invariably depicted as subservient to Yahweh, never as independent deities or objects of worship themselves. Their roles, whether guarding sacred space or proclaiming divine holiness, are entirely integrated into a monotheistic framework, suggesting a deliberate and inspired theological reshaping rather than simple appropriation. This view emphasizes the distinctiveness of biblical revelation, arguing that any perceived similarities are either coincidental or represent a purification of existing imagery to serve a singular divine purpose. But the evolution of angelic figures didn't halt there. It continued to be shaped by the seismic shifts of geopolitical power. The post-exilic period, particularly after 586 BCE, introduced a new profound influence, the Persian Empire and its dominant religion, Zoroastrianism. It is during this era that figures like Michael and Gabriel emerge with distinct names and roles in texts like Daniel and later Jewish apocalyptic literature, marking the development of a more structured angelic hierarchy. This development bears striking parallels to Zoroastrianism's Amishaspentas and Yazatas, powerful named divine beings assisting Ahura Mazda. Scholarship suggests these Persian concepts provided a compelling framework influencing the very architecture of Jewish angelology. The inclusion and elaboration of these figures within the nascent biblical canon wasn't simply divine mandate. It was a complex process of theological adaptation, absorbing and reshaping powerful foreign mythologies to fit a monotheistic worldview. Understanding this political and cultural exchange is vital, for it reveals the complex process of theological adaptation that shaped the very fabric of syncretic divinity. Our journey has illuminated how the cherubim, with their Mesopotamian counterparts, the seraphim, rooted in ancient serpent imagery from Canaan and Egypt, and the archangels, shaped by Zoroastrian hierarchies, are deeply intertwined. This continuous process of cultural and theological adaptation, which we've termed syncretic divinities, demonstrates that these iconic figures are not static, but complex entities that evolved over centuries, reflecting profound intercultural encounters. It's a testament not to simple appropriation, however, but to a sophisticated reinterpretation, where powerful foreign mythologies were carefully woven into a distinct monotheistic tapestry. But understanding this intricate historical process reveals a far more profound implication for the very nature of religious belief itself. Given this intricate tapestry of influence, we are compelled to ask a profound what if? What if the very fabric of our sacred narratives, including the ethereal beings we call angels, is a testament not solely to divine revelation, but to the intricate, often messy dance of human cultures and their evolving understanding of the divine? This perspective invites us to reevaluate the provenance of sacred texts, not as static, isolated pronouncements, but as living documents forged in the crucible of historical and cultural exchange. It challenges us to embrace a more nuanced, complex history of faith itself. To truly grasp the significance of this revelation, let us now consolidate the critical insights we've uncovered. Our journey through ancient mythologies has unveiled the complex provenance of biblical angels. We've traced the cherubim's iconic forms back to the winged guardians of Mesopotamia, figures like the Lamassu and Shadu, repurposed to protect Israelite sacred spaces. The fiery seraphim, scholarship suggests, found their roots in ancient Near Eastern serpent symbolism, from Egyptian uraeus to Canaanite cults, reinterpreted as attendants to Yahweh. And the emergence of named archangels like Michael and Gabriel reveals a profound influence from Zoroastrianism's structured hierarchies during the Persian period. These are not isolated creations, but syncretic divinities, products of a rich, interconnected ancient world. This historical lens, far from diminishing their significance, offers a deeper, more nuanced appreciation of how biblical texts absorbed and transformed powerful regional mythologies into their own unique tapestry of faith. However, for all the connections we've illuminated, some questions remain stubbornly open. The precise interplay between cultural borrowing and truly unique theological innovation in the formation of biblical angelology remains a vibrant field of academic inquiry. This isn't a closed case with simple answers. Rather, it's a testament to the layered, dynamic history of sacred texts. The ultimate question, perhaps unanswerable, is where human ingenuity ends and divine inspiration begins within this intricate historical process. Our journey of understanding is continuous, always revealing new facets. What are your thoughts on these historical connections? we've explored how the very fabric of biblical angelology is interwoven with ancient myth. Now, we turn to you. Does understanding the syncretic origins of cherubim, seraphim, and archangels change your perception of these iconic figures? Does it deepen your appreciation for the complex evolution of faith, or does it challenge long-held beliefs? Share your insights and engage with fellow critical thinkers in the comments below. Your perspective is invaluable to this ongoing conversation. If the historical fluidity of sacred narratives intrigues you, our next exploration delves into even more profound transformations within early Israelite religion. This journey into the layered origins of biblical angels serves as a powerful reminder of the deep, often surprising interplay between ancient cultures. The sacredness we perceive in these figures is enriched, not diminished, by understanding their complex provenance. If the historical fluidity of biblical figures and the constant reshaping of religious ideas intrigues you, consider our next deep dive. The hidden goddesses of early Israelite religion uncovers even more surprising transformations within early Israelite faith. We continue to dissect the hidden histories embedded within sacred texts, always seeking context over dogma. After seeing the interwoven origins of biblical angels, where do you draw the line between cultural influence and divine revelation? Tell me in the comments below. I read and reply to every single one. The hidden patterns persist. Our next video unravels the shocking truth behind the serpent in Eden's garden. Subscribe and turn on notifications for more. Like this, if you grasp these insights and share it with someone who needs to question. After uncovering the pagan origins of cherubim and seraphim, where do you draw the line between cultural influence and divine revelation? Tell me in the comments. I read and reply to all. The hidden patterns persist. Our next video unravels the shocking truth behind the serpent in Eden's garden. Subscribe, turn on notifications, and share this truth with someone who needs to question.